Have you ever caught yourself reacting to someone, your partner, your boss, a friend, and afterwards thought, where did that come from? That wasn't really me. Here's the uncomfortable truth. It was you. Just not the adult you. It was a much younger version of you, running a script written before you could read. Most of who we are, the way we love, the way we fight, the way we shrink, the way we explode, was shaped before we turned 7. And the strangest part? We don't remember writing the script. We just keep performing it. In the next 18 minutes, I'll walk you through 8 psychological patterns that almost everyone inherits from childhood without knowing it. In 1990, psychologist Jeffrey Young at Columbia University began noticing something strange in his patients. Even after years of therapy, the same painful patterns kept repeating. They knew what they were doing and still couldn't stop trying. Family systems pioneer Murray Bowen called something similar the multi-generational transmission process, the way emotional patterns pass from parent to child, not through DNA, but through thousands of small daily moments. And neuroscientist Dan Siegel has shown that the first relationships we have literally shape our brain's wiring. By the time we're adults, these aren't just memories, they're reflexes. Every adult walking around today is partly the child they used to be, still listening to voices that stopped speaking decades ago. The work isn't to blame anyone, it's to see the patterns clearly enough that you can finally choose differently. You apologize when someone bumps into you. You say sorry before asking a question. You feel guilty for taking up space in conversations, for having needs, for being too much, for being too little. If someone is upset, your first instinct is to wonder what you did wrong, even when it has nothing to do with you. This isn't politeness, it's a survival pattern. Children develop this when they grow up in environments where their existence felt conditional. Maybe a parent was overwhelmed, depressed, or angry, and you learned that being small, quiet, and accommodating was the safest way to be loved. Maybe one parent's mood determined the temperature of the entire house, and you became hyper-aware of how to not make it worse. Schema therapists call this the subjugation schema. The deep belief that your own needs, opinions, and feelings are less important than other people's. It shows up in your relationships when you can't say no, in your career when you can't ask for a raise, in friendships when you're always the one giving more. Underneath, there's often a child who learned that being a person was dangerous and is still trying to disappear into being whatever others need. You don't owe the world an apology for existing. That bill was paid the day you were born. Some children learned that love came when they performed. Good grades, good behavior, good achievements, good appearance. The performance was rewarded. Anything outside the performance was ignored, criticized, or punished. As an adult, you became the high achiever, the dependable one, the one who never lets people down. From the outside, your life looks impressive, but somewhere underneath all of it is a quiet exhaustion that never quite goes away. Because you're not living your life, you're auditioning for it. Researcher Alice Miller wrote about this in her landmark book, The Drama of the Gifted Child. She observed that many accomplished adults grew up as children whose emotional needs were sacrificed for the sake of meeting their parents' needs. The child became gifted at reading the parent and delivering exactly what was wanted. The cost? The child lost contact with what they themselves wanted, felt, or needed. This pattern is hard to spot because society rewards it. You get promotions, you get praise, you get the appearance of a successful life. But internally, there's a thin film of unreality over everything. You wonder why you can't enjoy your achievements. Psychologists call this contingent self-worth. Your value to yourself feels conditional on what you produce. The way out begins by noticing the moments when you do nothing. and feeling the discomfort that arises. That discomfort is the pattern speaking. It's the child inside you who learned that being still meant being unloved. You were never loved for what you produced. You were just told you were. The love was always for you, but you'll have to learn to believe that yourself. You downplay your achievements. You deflect compliments. When something good happens, your first instinct is to find what's wrong with it. You can't celebrate yourself, can't post the win, can't say, "I'm proud of this," without immediately adding a qualifier. This isn't humility. Humility is comfortable with yourself. This is something else. A low-grade fear that being visible, being proud, being too much will somehow be punished. The first is a family where one or both parents were envious, competitive, or threatened by the child's gifts. Maybe you noticed your mother got tense when you were complimented. Maybe your father made jokes at your expense the moment you got too confident. Maybe achievement was celebrated only briefly before being deflated by criticism. Don't get a big head. The child learns shining is dangerous. Stay small. Stay safe.
The second environment is one where attention itself was unsafe. A parent who was unpredictable, who could turn from warm to cruel without warning. The child learned that being noticed was a coin flip. Sometimes love, sometimes harm. Better to stay invisible. Better to never need anything. Decades later, this becomes the adult who can't accept a compliment, who feels strangely uncomfortable when things go well, who self-sabotages just before a breakthrough. Researchers call this fear of success, or upper limit problem. It's not that you don't want good things. It's that your nervous system treats good things as the warning sign that something bad is about to happen. The healing is uncomfortable because it requires doing the exact opposite of what your inner child learned was safe. Receiving a compliment without deflecting it. Letting yourself feel proud for 10 full seconds. The smallness wasn't humility, it was protection, and you don't need it anymore. You walk into a room, and within seconds, you've scanned every face, picked up every tension, noticed who's upset, who's tired, who's pretending. People say you're intuitive, empathic, deeply perceptive, and you are. But there's a darker side to this gift. You can't turn it off. You read rooms even when you don't want to. You know your partner's mood from how they put down their keys. You know your boss is upset from one syllable in their email. You absorb other people's emotions like a sponge, often without realizing it, and walk through your day exhausted by feelings that aren't even yours. This is what trauma researcher Bessel van der Kolk has documented in The Body Keeps the Score, a hyper-attuned nervous system, calibrated in childhood to detect danger early. Children who grow up with unpredictable, addicted, mentally ill, or emotionally volatile caregivers learn to read micro-expressions the way other children learn to read books. It's a survival adaptation. If you could predict the storm, you could hide before it broke. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, and it sits at the core of what's now called complex trauma or developmental trauma. It's not a personality trait, it's a wiring pattern. It costs you the ability to be present because part of you is always scanning. It costs you genuine connection because you're often more focused on managing other people's emotions than expressing your own. It costs you rest because your nervous system never fully relaxes, even in safe environments. This pattern often makes people excellent at their jobs in fields like therapy, healthcare, teaching, and management. The world rewards your trauma, so you keep performing it, never realizing that what looks like a strength is also slowly draining you. Your sensitivity was a gift you developed in a place that wasn't safe. You can keep the gift without keeping the fear. This is one of the most painful patterns to recognize, and one of the most universal. If you grew up feeling unseen, you tend to fall in love with people who don't quite see you. If you grew up with criticism,
You find yourself drawn to partners who criticize. If you grew up earning love, you choose people who require you to keep earning it. We don't choose what's good for us. We choose what's familiar. Freud called this repetition compulsion, the unconscious tendency to repeat the conditions of our childhood wounds, hoping this time we can fix them. The brain confuses familiarity with safety. It thinks this feeling is what love is, because this feeling is what love was.
So you meet someone kind, available, emotionally present, and you feel nothing. No spark, no chemistry. Boring, you tell your friends. Then you meet someone unavailable, inconsistent, slightly withholding, and your whole nervous system lights up. This is it, you think. But it's not love you're feeling. It's recognition. Until you see this pattern, you'll keep dating different versions of the same person. Different faces, same dynamic. Different cities, same heartbreak. The shift happens when boring becomes interesting. When someone consistent stops feeling dull and starts feeling safe. When the absence of chaos doesn't make you anxious, but lets you breathe. The chemistry you've been chasing isn't love. It's a familiar wound disguised as a soulmate. Real love often feels surprisingly quiet at first. If your partner is in a bad mood, your day is ruined. You don't just feel for people, you feel as them. This pattern forms through parentification, when a child is made responsible for a parent's well-being. You were never supposed to carry them. Set the weight down. A lot of what you've been calling love was actually anxiety. That fluttering when they don't text back isn't depth, it's fear of losing them. Children with inconsistent caregiving develop anxious attachment, where love means vigilance. Healthy love feels quieter. That's your nervous system finally getting to rest. Even when there's nothing to do, you can't sit still. The moment you stop being productive, guilt whispers you should be doing more. Researchers call this toxic productivity, the belief that your worth is measured by your output. Rest is not a reward. It's a right. The bill was always imaginary. You're not broken. You're a person who learned to survive the environment you were given. The patterns that saved you in childhood are now the cage you live in, and awareness is the door. Pick the one pattern that hit hardest and just notice it this week. The goal was never to become a different person. It was to come home to who you were before the world told you who to be.